Rooted is a podcast about full person health, mind, body, and spirit, grounded in ancient biblical wisdom and guided by modern wellness insights.
As Christian health coaches, we believe true wellness starts from the inside out, and it is our goal to inspire, encourage, and equip you to pursue health that's rooted in truth, not trends. Hey, Stephanie.
Hello.
We're so excited. This is episode, well, we don't know the number, but we know what we're going to talk about. We're going to discuss today the standard American diet as it relates to spiritual warfare.
That's the curveball, I think, because we hear so much about the standard American diet these days. But I think when it relates back to your faith, there's like a whole new door to look into and gain wisdom from. So tell us about the objective.
Yeah. So our objective today is we're going to discuss statistics around the standard American diet and share tips on how to really read ingredient labels through a discerning biblical lens. We want our listeners to feel informed when they make food choices that are rooted in truth and that also honor the Lord and the bodies that he gave us. And one of our core verses for this is 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God.
Amen. And so when we were talking about this specific topic, we knew it was kind of like one of those that really takes us back to the basics of health and wellness, because I would say if you were to ever have a nutritionist or a health coach, this is one of the first things that they would help you to learn is how to read your labels, how to know what to choose for your food. But again, like I said earlier, we're adding this spiritual warfare aspect, which I think is one of the biggest missed topics in this. And so we decided that we should really just be in prayer about it and ask God to show us, okay, what do we need to bring to this? And so I think it was kind of over the holidays, we had come up with a few different topics that we wanted to really touch on in the beginning of this. And we both prayed about it. And for me, what came up was, of course, it was like a rhyming thing, because of course we would have some kind of rhyming or pun included. So I just kept hearing obedience over ingredients. And I was like, okay, God, like, is this just a rhyming thing that you want? But then the more I prayed about it, I saw that this obedience is really the driving force to why you would even read the ingredients in the first place. If you're just reading ingredients to check off a box or to just say you're doing it, or to kind of like prove somebody wrong, which I think is kind of a lot of what happens when you start to get into this new mindset of health and wellness. You're like, have you read the ingredients, or what do your ingredients say? Because you know, like, you want to make sure people know the knowledge that you've learned, and also just be right a lot of times, I guess. But
as humans, we like to
be right. But it's more about being obedient to Christ and what he says about our bodies and how they're a temple and how we bring excellence in every way. So that was something that I felt like I really needed to share, is that this episode is not about like trying to show you all the bad things you have in your cupboard and get rid of it. It's more about why we want to even do this in the first place and setting that intention for health and wellness, which is another thing that kind of came up for me, is that setting an intention is obedience. And when we do that, we have this clear path ahead of us that kind of leads us in the direction that is God's will, and not our human nature to just like do the right things or be the good person. And it kind of takes us back into God's will, and it puts your heart in a position to create that like solid foundation that God wants us to have for our health and in our lives. And I also had a dream about this. I didn't even tell you about this. But I had a dream when I was praying about this. I've been having some crazy dreams lately that I'll probably share in episodes to come because they're about different topics. But this one wasn't necessarily about ingredients, but it was more about like our podcast in general, and how it was like God was just telling me to not let this be used as a tool that kind of divides people, but really just brings people together. And so I feel like in this episode, that's what we want to really do, is encourage people to take a look at what you know about ingredients and reading them, but not to make you feel condemned.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
yes, maybe you have some Cheetos, or maybe you have some conventional stuff in your closet that doesn't
Your
have,
pantry, maybe not your closet.
you keep it in the closet because you don't want people to know about it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you know what I meant. But yeah, so it's not about condemnation, it's about just helping you be informed. And hey, you may not agree on everything, or you may not agree on the way that we do things currently in our household, but
Mhm.
you just take this and use it as an encouragement to move forward in full circle health.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of ways that I learned about ingredients reading was through the internet. It was through social media. It was through more like non-toxic or crunchy influencers. And
Mhm.
I have noticed that a lot of their MO comes from like a negative spin,
Yes, I hate that. I wish that it wasn't like that. And I think it's because we're just in such a polarized
Right,
season of the world
right,
that when you have your point to make, you get more clicks, you
right.
get more attention by everybody else is stupid and we have all the answers. So
Yes.
listen to us,
If it's the wow factor and if
Right.
it's polarizing.
Yeah.
So we actually want to try to not do that. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously we are human and we still live in a fallen world and we have our types with that, or our times with that as well. But I do think that that's something that you and I can agree. We want
Yeah.
to just really incorporate community and positivity, and yeah, look at the dark side and the negative side, but then turn it around for good.
Right. Yeah.
And so that actually leads me into a small little personal story of how I first began to read ingredient labels. And my vice, you should know, are potato chips or anything salty. Um, and so probably 5 years ago, I was just gorging on a box of Cheez-Its. And Cheez-Its were definitely one of my vices. Cheez-Its, Pringles, Wheat Thins, anything crackery and salty. And I was eating this entire box. Like I remember looking down and thinking, this box is almost completely gone. Why can I not control myself from these Cheez-Its?
They're pretty addicting.
Yeah. And what's in them? What am I putting in my body?
Yeah.
And that was the very first time that I actually like turned over a box, looked at the nutrition label, and then also looked at the ingredients. So here's a short little anecdote of that day. I've got the ingredients listed right here, but my first gut instinct, which is what I had learned as a child, was you look at the nutrition facts, just the
Mhm.
box of nutrition. And I'm like, oh, okay, this only has 8 grams of fat per 27 crackers. All right. And I'm like, dang,
That's a
27
lot.
crackers, that's quite a bit, but I've probably eaten 3 times that at this point. So only 8 grams of fat, only 1.5 grams of saturated fat. And I'm like, yeah, I knew saturated fat wasn't the best, but at least it's only 1.5 grams per 27 crackers. And then I looked at sodium because I knew sodium was kind of a buzzword.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, 10% of my daily value per 27 crackers. Again, not too bad. I just won't eat a lot of salt at dinner. And then I said, and it's got protein. We're good. We're golden. Like I've eaten whatever 27 times 3 is. I can't do that
And
math.
you didn't even look at the calories. The calories are great.
Oh,
Only
yeah.
150
Okay.
calories,
See, there you go.
which I feel
So,
like that was one of the biggest things people were
yes.
looking at for a long time
Yeah.
is how many calories are in that? That's a high calorie food.
Right. So would that be considered like not high calorie?
I don't feel, I mean, 150 to me, like, first of all, let me just preface with I don't look at the calories ever, so I don't really know. To me, like, that is not a high calorie number. I feel like that's pretty low. They
Okay.
used to make for a little while, Nabisco would make those 100-calorie
Yes.
snack
Oh,
packs.
Cheez-Its did too.
Yeah, so
I
that so
think Nabisco
150 is
yeah.
not that bad. So they are a Nabisco product, I think.
So yeah, I was excited. I'm like, okay, 27 crackers times 3 with this nutrition fact label, I'm not doing too bad. But then I was like, but what's the ingredients? What are these actual things made of? So I'll read it for you. Enriched flour, which if you're not sure what that means that they've actually taken the natural ingredients out of the flour, stripped the flour of that in the process,
All the vitamins and minerals, yeah.
taken them out, and then re-enriched it with most of the time synthetic things. So enriched flour, which means wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, vitamin B1, thiamine mononitrate, vitamin B2, and folic acid. Vegetable oil. At the time, I did not know that vegetable oil was an inflammatory oil. That's one that we try to stray away from. And then that vegetable oil included soybean and palm oil with TBHQ for freshness. And that stopped me because I'm like, hold up, TBHQ, like that sounds like a radio station. Like, what does TBHQ stand for and what is that? So I put that in my brain. I came back. Cheese made with skim milk. Okay, I know what cheese is. I know what milk is. Whey protein, cheese culture, salt, enzymes, annatto extract, and then 2% of less paprika, salt, yeast extract, and soy lecithin. So I'm like, all right, that's all not too bad, but let's go look up TBHQ. So I looked up TBHQ, and I'm probably going to completely brutal this word. Tertiary butyl hydroquinone.
Wow,
Possibly.
good job. I don't know.
The librarian in me is coming out. It is a synthetic preservative used to extend shelf life. It keeps fats and oil from going rancid. This is commonly found in processed foods and even in cosmetics and skincare, as well as in paints, lacquers, and resins. And I'm like, okay, so clearly this is not a product that was grown on the earth. And also it has a really long scientific name. This is primarily used in foods, I already said that contain vegetable and animal fat. It can also be in some drinks like soy milk. It's often in fast food, snack food, baked goods, pastries, commercial breads, frozen foods like fish and pizza. And then any of the ramen noodle fans out there, that was me at one time. TBHQ is in those. But despite approval of TBHQ being used in processed foods from the FDA, there is a lot of research that shows some dangerous side effects. And I'll just briefly mention these. Again, we don't want to dwell on the bad, but this is the thing that, for me, got my brain spinning, because these were the possible research side effects of TBHQ. It can promote cancer. It can contribute to tumor growth. It can harm our immune system. It has neurotoxic properties, brain.
Yikes.
Brain toxic, brain toxin. It can lead to food and atopic allergies. Atopic would be like skin. And it can cause damage to red blood cells.
Yes.
So I was like, wait a minute, why is this allowed in our food? I dug a little bit deeper. The FDA considers certain processing things to have a degree of grade. It's called generally regarded as safe. So TBHQ has a GRAS, generally regarded as safe, has a GRAS rating of 0.02. But if that was in just 27 crackers I had, and I had 27 times 3, plus it could have also been in the makeup I put on that morning. It could have been in the ramen noodles that I had the day before. It could have been in the frozen fish sticks that I gave my kids. Like, I was like, wait a minute, this can't be generally regarded as safe. So it was a light bulb moment for me. And I just remember thinking, okay, I've got one ingredient in my head that the next time I go to the store, I'm going to try to avoid it. And I started looking at all ingredient labels from there on out. And I also learned that TBHQ, the one we just talked about, BHT, BHA, EDTA, and PG. Those are the 5 main preservatives that have similar side effects. So I said,
Okay, so take notes, everybody.
all these acronyms.
Write these down. And then when you're going to the store, these are going to be the kind of hidden things to look for. And I feel like we're kind of really diving in, but I think it's for a good reason. I think it's good to know all of this, to know the hidden things, because that is where the spiritual warfare comes in, I think, because Satan always moves in a way that is almost too cunning to notice until you step back and you're like, wait a second, what is that?
Yes.
Because I will say that Cheez-Its, the ingredient list is actually really short. And if you're going for a general rule of what to read in ingredients, you always want to look for the shorter list, because the long list is like, you think this TBHQ has some long
names,
scientific names. I mean, you should read some of the other foods that you're eating. You can't even pronounce half the things that are in the ingredients. So this is something that, like, for Cheez-Its, for example, they are one of the more natural ingredient listed foods.
Right.
But like you said, if you're overloading on your toxin load in general, because you're not aware of things like these acronyms that you all just announced, then you're going to be taking your body to a place where it cannot heal itself.
Yeah.
Your body is designed to be able to withstand a certain amount of
Toxicity.
toxicity, and that's why it's generally considered
safe. Right.
because our body can rid itself of things like that. It has organs and systems to detox itself. But the problem with the world today is that we have so many foods, so many environments, so many circumstances that create high stress levels, high toxin load. And so even when you're just choosing one or two things, you need to know
Right.
what's going on.
Right.
And that I think also ties back into this idea that, hey, we're not bringing this all up to bring a spirit of fear or condemnation over you. This is just for clarity and understanding how you can really choose the right things for yourself in
Yes.
peace.
Yeah.
Have peace about it.
And a teachable moment of we are responsible for what we put in our bodies,
Yes.
especially as Christians. We have to regard this as a temple where God lives. So what am I feeding it? And then how is my body responding to what I'm feeding it?
Yeah. I
So-
feel like, can you share what you were talking about because you're on a special protocol right now for healing. And you mentioned that you had like a dessert last night.
Yeah.
And can you share that story?
Yeah,
Because I feel like
yeah. We'll probably have another whole episode about this, but I am currently doing a 4-month cellular health regeneration program. And so I'm on a pretty stringent diet of no dairy, no sugar, no processed food, obviously. And so yesterday was my birthday and I cheated for the first time. I've been on it since January 17th, so about 6 weeks. And I had a small piece of cake and I had a mocktail, and I know that had sugar in it. Or excuse me, not cake, I had a brownie. And I realized that last night I just didn't sleep as well. And I was like, man, I have been sleeping so good for the past 6 weeks. Like, you talk about restorative, deep, incredible sleep. And this morning I woke up and I'm like, gosh, I almost felt like just a tiny bit of like a hangover, even though there was not even alcohol involved. It was simply just what my body had not had in 6 weeks, and it didn't like it last night.
Yeah. So I think with that story, that kind of shows you that there is kind of like this purification that happens
Yeah.
when you have the awareness of what food is doing to your body.
Yes.
And so
I wish
knowing-
everybody could have that experience.
yes.
Yeah.
And you can have this experience. I promise you. All you have to do is just know what you're doing and don't move in fear, because honestly, stress is just as harmful as the ingredients sometimes. So
Yeah.
we don't want to be stressed out about this. We just want to know how we can put good things into our body, how we can do it in an ease that God wants us to move through, because he doesn't want us to be stressed out about our food or idolize our health, you know?
Right.
And so he just wants us to have this awareness of how to treat our bodies properly. And when you start to remove that veil of deception,
Yes.
and kind of walk in wisdom, you start to notice, oh, wait, like too much sugar in this way, or adding this ingredient into my diet, this is going to cause me to not have that experience of thriving like I
Yes.
could. And I think that's why in the Bible, fasting with prayer is done so many times spiritually, and still even in the New Testament it's used. It's not like just an old thing that people did, and lots of churches and people do it today too. If you're not religious, our church actually just did one a few weeks ago, and I think it's just to kind of take you back to that base level of like, okay, I've kind of purged or released all of this from my system. It gives you mental clarity. It gives you more awareness. It puts you through a little bit of a state of struggle, so where you're depending on God in a different way. And it's kind of reflects that story that you just shared, because you've been eliminating things from your diet that have kind of just been in there, and you didn't even realize, like, oh wow, if I eat this sugar, like I may not sleep the same way, or I may wake up a little bit puffier.
Right, exactly.
And so it's just,
it reminds me of I think it's in 1 Peter, 2 Peter, be alert and of sober mind. And I've always just thought sober means the lack of alcohol, but no, sober actually means the lack of all of the toxic things that are going to disrupt our thinking and our mental clarity and our sleep and our, like you said, that veil. Like, be alert and of sober mind, because the enemy prowls around like a roaring lion. And when we are so on autopilot of just being how culture is and doing what everyone else does, it's so easy to just fall in line when really we should be called out. We should be set apart. That's what righteous means, being the complete opposite of what the world is doing.
Yeah. So I love how when you were explaining your story, you mentioned the way that you would have looked up the nutritional value of the food, and you said you went straight to the nutrition facts, which I think is obviously it's required to be on there, so it's good to know, but it's definitely not necessarily needing to be the main focus in what you're looking for in your ingredients.
Are the main focus, and I think that's where just in the past 20 to 30 years we've been so taught to just look at the nutrition and, like you said, the calories. But if you look over the nutrition quickly, but the biggest importance of your food is the actual words listed in the ingredients labels. I grabbed a box from my closet. No, I'm kidding. My pantry. This is a snack that I bought at Costco for my kids. I don't know if y'all can see this on the video footage, but it's called Pure Organic Twisted Fruit Bites made with real fruit purees and juices. And from the outside, that looks amazing. And so I immediately turned it over. And honestly, the nutrition facts are, again, not too bad. Only 70 calories per one pouch. Sugar is only 13 grams, and that is regular sugar. It does have 6 grams of added sugar. But here's the trick. I want to know what that added sugar comes from, because we know that added sugar is where a lot of sneaky processed chemicals can come in. So I went through, before I bought this box, I went through and I read the actual ingredients of these. They've got 2 different flavors, blueberry raspberry and strawberry mango. So in the blueberry raspberry, we have apple puree concentrate, apple juice concentrate, vegetable and fruit juice for color, citrus pectin, which is just a fruit from citrus, or excuse me, a sugar from citrus, blueberry puree, raspberry juice, lemon juice, and natural flavors. So I'm like, okay, there is actually no harmful added ingredients for sugar in this. Whereas, if you get the Welch's fruit snacks or Gusher.
And they do make Welch's Organics.
They do, yes. But then some of the ones prior, I remember like when I was a kid.
Right. But a lot of, and here's the thing about, this kind of like segues into what we were going to talk about greenwashing.
Yes.
There are a lot of organic foods, or they are considered organic because it's something that you actually pay for now and you qualify with certain standards, but it's not necessarily like, oh, this is organic, this is great. It's still important to read what's in your food.
Yeah.
Because there is still a lot of organic added sugar.
Yes.
Which is processed, and the Welch's, I think, probably have a little bit more of that. It's not as much natural sugar. I'm not trying to dog on Welch's. I think it's probably a better snack than some other red dye filled everything, right. Which I don't know if they have the dyes in there or not, but
they've made some without dyes, I've seen.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, we've made leaps and bounds progress with dyes, which is really cool.
Thank you.
Another thing in the ingredient list to pay attention to, besides the acronyms of BHT, BHA, EDTA, PG, all those things. So I used to work in a corporate setting that was for a major food label that everybody's heard of. I don't want to really say because, it is what it is, but you would know it. And they actually introduced a sect of the company that was an organic foods higher end artisan part of it. And
Can you at least tell what
it was mostly like chocolates and things like that. The company itself, they mostly did chocolates. And then I worked for the side that they had like a jerky brand and an organic dark chocolate and some snacks that were like on the organic side. And all of these brands that I was representing in my position as the marketing manager were actually small businesses that were bought up by this big corporation. And now they are using these artisanal snacks to push their company forward in this market. So there's been this big influx of understanding that organic and healthy food is actually selling now, which is amazing, but don't be tricked. Again, this is where the spiritual warfare comes in.
Right.
You have to know what's in your food. Just because it says organic or the package looks really pretty and green.
Yes, greenwashing.
Yeah, greenwashing, which greenwashing can mean a lot of different things. It can mean like environmental factors, but
Oh.
as far as food goes, and a lot of food actually does bring that in too. They'll say like, this is not tested on animals, but like, okay, but what is it? Like, that's great, but like, what is it actually? What is it that I'm actually eating, or what is it that I'm actually doing with these products, or what is in it? And so I think it's really important to be aware that that is a thing. And if you know how to read your ingredients, then you won't be fooled.
Yeah.
So it
And
just,
and even if you don't know how, you can start the way I did. I looked for those acronyms and they were actually pretty easy because they're always capitalized. And I would just avoid those. But then I learned how to know what other things were. But the bottom line is just look for, like you said, short lists
Mhm,
of real food.
mhm.
It's that simple.
Okay. And that also brings me to another, I think, kind of related question that one of our listeners actually mentioned on a Facebook post is they said something that along the lines of, how do we choose these healthier foods when the cheaper or when the unhealthy stuff is so much cheaper?
Well,
And I'm like, okay, good point in some regard.
Yeah.
Yes, if you go to Sprouts or Whole Foods, you're going to find these things very easily. There's tons of options, which is amazing. I will say not everything in those stores is great either. You have to
Right.
still read the ingredient labels because of this greenwashing that is happening, or money-driven perspective on health and wellness, and how it can now it's like its own thing. It's
Yeah.
its own market.
It's like it's becoming trendy, so therefore the corruption's also going to follow it.
Exactly, of course. And so it's just an awareness to have. But I moved out to the country. So Walmart is my only option right now. It's within the 20-minute, vicinity. I have a baby, they'll deliver to me, so that's great right now.
Yes.
I don't have a Whole Foods, I don't have a Sprouts, I don't have a Trader Joe's, I don't have any of that near me unless I want to drive an hour. So I had to like really, dig my heels in and figure out like what at Walmart is going to be good. And there are many options there. Yes. And here's the thing, fruits and vegetables, it doesn't have to be where you're buying these fancy food items.
Right.
Take it back to your basics. Like you don't have to spend a ton of money on food to make it healthy.
Right.
And yes, okay, the organic meats are going to be more expensive, but how much are you spending on your, iced coffee habit? Or how much are you spending on your vaping on the side or your cigarettes or your drinking even?
Yeah.
Like it's really all about kind of finding that balance in where you put your dollars
Right.
in a responsible way, which is kind of like a side, that could be a whole other episode again.
No, I think we need to bring this up because that is one of the largest arguments for buying organic or cleaner food is that it's expensive.
Mhm.
But the way that it made sense to me was I'm either going to pay for it on the front end or I'm going to pay for it
Yeah.
later.
Amen.
And that seems like most people are like, oh, it's just that time of life where, everything just starts falling apart and everybody's getting sick and having heart attacks and having strokes and in nursing homes. And I'm like, wait a minute. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's right or
Mhm.
normal. And so you can invest in your health now, or you can invest in your sickness later.
Mhm.
And
Our chiropractor has a saying on the wall or somewhere that says something like, heart disease runs in your family if no one runs in your family. Which is not exactly related, but also is the same kind of concept.
yeah, and Cheez-Its and Pringles probably ran in your
Yeah.
family too. So like it's all relative and it's all nuanced, and it's also a choice. Like if you want to spend your retirement in a nursing home, I pray that you don't, and I pray that you don't want that either. But those choices to not spend your 70s that way start now.
Mhm.
If you're 15, if you're 35.
I think I read recently in one of those like mindset posts on Instagram that the way you treat your body from the age, I think it was like 32 to 40
Yeah.
something,
Mhm.
is going to be what sets the tone for you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that is like, okay, first of all, if you're younger, you still got time to switch this up. Not saying go and get wild or anything like that, but everybody has their moment. But, we're in our 30s. And so it's like, okay, this is the time.
Yes.
Let's dial in,
Yeah.
figure out what's going to be the smartest choices for us and our family. And, habits are more easily created at a younger age anyway.
Mhm.
And so if you're a parent, this is the time where you create those habits for your kids. Um, my daughter will literally tell her teacher, I can't have that. It has red dye in it. But it's like we've made her aware of
Mhm.
how this, I mean, she has seen herself in the meltdown of
She's
having
like,
the
"I
red
don't
dye.
like me."
Oh, it's, I mean, it is, and you know, you hear all these things about red dye and all of the ingredients that make you act crazy or make your kids act crazy, and you're like, is it really that? Or is my kid just going through a phase? No. My kid had a moment where she had one of those red snow cones from
A slushy
like
place.
snow, yeah, the slushy place.
Yeah.
And we went to a friend's house after, and I was just looking at her like, oh my gosh, like I mean, we tested it out. I'm not recommending it, but she was a different kid, and she noticed it too. And I'm like, that's it. No more of this. This is not happening again, you know?
I have to add to that because, I worked in a school system for several years, and that was one of the things that I continued to see. And I would go in the cafeteria and I would see what these kids were eating. And then they would come back into the class, and I'm like, no wonder that child can't sit still. No wonder that child is having these emotional outbursts. Like, I saw what they just ate.
Mhm.
And that was a passion thing for me. I'm like, parents just don't know what they don't know, and I've got to get the word out there.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's a lot of where my heart for this comes from, but it's so true. Until you remove these things that are causing such mayhem that we don't even realize because culture calls it normal, you're never going to realize how much freer and fuller life can be without them.
And I've actually had an older, I guess, generation tell me things like, we had this the whole time when we were growing up.
No.
Okay, but did you know that the ingredients have changed drastically? The same exact brands and food choices that you had when you were a kid, the preservatives, because of monetizing
Okay.
the brand and keeping the shelf life stable, has changed drastically.
Yes.
And I actually said that. I'm like, yeah, but the ingredients aren't the same anymore. And she looked at me like, you're crazy. But I'm like,
Look at McDonald's French fries ingredients from the 70s to now, and it's like they used to just use beef tallow
mhm.
and sea salt and I think potatoes, like maybe one other thing. And now you look at McDonald's French fries list and it's like 27 things, and they're good. Yeah, they're good.
They do have a nice taste. So,
But they are not food, and they are absolutely poisoning our system.
yeah.
While we're on this topic, let me just quickly mention the standard American diet statistics as of 2011. Currently, we have 60% of adults living with a chronic illness, 74% are overweight or obese, 30% of teens are pre-diabetic, and 50% of the American people will deal with mental illness at some point in their life.
Ugh,
The craziest
That's-
thing is
that's sad.
it's sad.
SAD.
So sad. The leading causes of death in the United States are heart disease, cancer, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, pneumonia, and liver disease. But preventable diet and lifestyle conditions are responsible for 80% of these modern human deaths.
Wow.
Preventable diet and lifestyle conditions. And that's another issue, is like it's not their fault. It's not fully their fault. We live in a fallen world.
Mhm.
We live in a corrupt world where money continues to take precedence over human welfare.
Yeah.
But when we live opposite of the world and more in line with Christ and what the Bible says, it is so important and so much different to have that lifestyle.
Speaking of living
Change these
opposite, how
statistics.
funny is it that the food pyramid was literally just flipped upside down? Like, talk about a Godwin right there. I
Yeah.
mean, it just goes to show you that for years we've just been kind of falling in line with this food pyramid, which if you go down that rabbit hole, it is bought and paid for all the way.
Yes.
And so and when you look at the way that it's flipped, it just makes so much more sense. Like these
Yeah.
are all of the more natural things. The bread and processed foods at the bottom and the biggest thing so you can get yourself full. That doesn't work
No.
the way that our processed foods are now. Maybe in a later time, before all of these new things were added into our ingredient list,
Right.
it may have been more fulfilling. But no, the whole grains and all of that is now at the very top and the smallest, because that's what turns into sugar
You mean the
fastest.
bottom.
Well,
very
yeah,
bottom.
it's
Flip.
yeah, right. It's now in the smallest part of it.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm excited that we're moving in that direction, and
And
that-
and one thing I want to say about that is, you know, this old food pyramid was from, I think, the 90s, 80s or 90s, so roughly 25, 30 years ago. And now that it's completely flipped, like that just shows you that things do change
Mhm.
and that when we follow trends per se, or we just trust the doctors and the food scientists that are working for these large corporations, look what it does to our health. Not that they're nefarious or they're evil or they're out to do us harm, but you look back at what the people in the Bible ate and how long they lived and how well they lived,
Mhm.
it looked like this upside down pyramid.
Yeah.
Grains were, you know, they were still actually pretty high up, but they weren't sprayed with glyphosate. So that's totally different.
Right.
Lots of protein.
And they were not enriched and
Yes.
bleached
Thrift
and
and then
dripped.
enriched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A totally different experience having bread like that.
I just kind of had this thought how they sometimes refer to Jesus's gospel as the upside down gospel.
Oh yeah,
You know,
how
'cause
funny.
it's
I know that's what I'm
completely-
saying. Like we talk about following God's kingdom like it's an upside down thing, and they just flip the pyramid to
Love
make
it.
it upside down. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
sounds like
That's
a kingdom
flippin'
win.
cool.
Yeah, it's flipping cool. Oh man. Yeah, so there are also a lot of really cool tools like apps for you to download that can help you with this really quickly in the grocery store so you're not just sitting there for hours looking at labels like, "Oh my gosh, who has time for that?" Nobody. So there are apps that you can kind of like scan a label, or if you know you need something from the grocery store, you can kind of look up what you need and it will just like quickly help you find. Do you use anything like that?
I do. I started with the EWG app, and I still use that a lot of times today. I use it a lot for household items and like body care, but there's also the Yucca app.
Yeah, that's one that I've
YUKA.
used. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then I just learned about this new one, the Bobby approved.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He owns a clean organic food called Flav City.
Uh-huh.
And so he has his own app, Bobby approved app. And I've heard great things about that as well. So
Yeah.
we kind of went into our action step with that. We hope that you can utilize the resources that good people with good intentions have made, Yucca app, EWG app, and Bobby approved to scan your things. And that's a lot of how you can learn as well.
Yeah, and then another action step I would say is really just set your intention for health before you're going into the grocery store to buy things. And here's the thing, like as you were talking about the Cheez-Its, I was thinking, oh, well, you know what? That's like one of my road my road trip snacks sometimes. Because when you go to a gas station, like there's not really many options. I try to choose the best option available, and I'm not going to stress about it because most of the time I'm keeping good things in my house because I've set an intention of this, full circle health on a regular basis. So I don't want to keep things like cheeses in my house. But if I'm on the go or if we're out there, I'm going to choose the ingredients that have the least amount of things in there, and I'm not going to eat it often. I'm not going to eat 3 servings of it. I'm just going to get like a little bag or whatever.
You're lucky. I couldn't stop myself.
I mean, hey, I'm not saying it's never happened.
No,
I'm
I
just
get it, I
saying
get it.
now that I've set this intention,
Yes.
overall, I'm just going into my health and wellness, ingredient reading with a strategy.
Yeah.
And that's where I think setting your intention becomes really important. You start by focusing on one food group, like maybe you're going to just go into this new part of your journey where you just decide, okay, well, this grocery trip, I'm not really going to worry so much about reading every ingredient label, but I am going to buy all organic meats or
Yeah.
all organic vegetables, just
Yeah.
baby steps.
Yeah.
Set that intention and move through it with baby steps.
Do we want to go over organic versus conventional?
Yeah.
Brief overview. I know that like glyphosate and organic is a buzz phrase and topic right now. And I actually, in some of my courses this week, was just reading and learning about a lot of this. So just so that any of you who are ever questioned, like, is it really worth it to buy organic? Let me explain what organic is and what conventional is. For crops, organic means the no use of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, or bioengineered genes, which is also GMOs, genetically modified organisms. For organic animals, this means no growth hormones, no antibiotics. They have access to the outdoors, and they do not ever have any GMO food given to them. So there have been studies done, one study called the Stanford study that says there's no difference in the actual nutritional value of organic food versus conventional food. And that was done in 2010, I believe. And then since then, Other studies have come out and said that's wrong. There actually is a lot of difference. And one of the biggest areas that they found the difference in, I thought was so interesting, is in vitamin C concentration. In a organic piece of produce, there was 9% more vitamin C. So I'm like, I'm willing to pay a little bit extra more to have that higher vitamin C because we know
in its natural form and not like a synthetic
exactly added
tablet.
in.
Yeah.
And vitamin C is one of the greatest fighters of cancer cells. So just for that fact alone, whether someone doesn't have cancer or has cancer or is just trying to prevent it, organic vegetables and fruit are going to have a higher vitamin C count and polyphenol count, which is another phenol has an anti-cancer activity and suppresses the carcinogenic process as well. So don't believe everything you read, but also go back to the basics of how did God intend for that fruit to grow? Did he intend for it to be sprayed with this major insecticide and herbicide?
And that's why I think it's actually really cool that we have this growth in farmers markets and knowing your farmer and knowing where you're going to get your beef. I know you have your own cattle, so you are now doing that. You take one in and get it processed.
Yes.
We do the same thing. We usually split one with my mother-in-law, and I really do at this point, because I know that I try not to buy any beef or anything from the store, because you also just don't really know. There, with these studies, they're great, and buying organic is the better option, I would say, in most cases. But I think it's just important to know where your food is coming from. When something's being mass produced, there are all these different guidelines and loopholes and obstacles that people jump across to get this label on what they're doing.
Yes.
So I think just to add in a little bit more nuance to that understanding is, just because something says organic even doesn't necessarily mean that it's like the best thing for you to choose for yourself when you're considering all of your other toxin load and processed foods that are being incorporated into your everyday diet. I know Florida actually just did a study on bread.
Yes, I saw that. And even the organic bread
that I've showed
before
had no pesticides. So
corn and wheat are some of the highest monoculture agriculture. I don't know what that monoculture agriculture, excuse me. When there's one single crop being grown, by the millions, corn and wheat are the highest sprayed with herbicide and pesticide.
Which I think is great that now that we've flipped that pyramid, because it's not one of the main things that we're eating. So if you're not eating it mostly, then your body is going to be able to get rid of that.
Yes.
But again, like we said in the beginning, just be aware of what is happening so that okay, well, I don't need to just be eating bread all the time, even if it's organic, and same thing with our meats and our vegetables. If you know where it's coming from, then you know that those people are going to be treating it ethically instead of buying this mass-produced product that has, bent over backwards to monetize the product while fitting into these parameters by maybe creating some loopholes.
Right.
Who knows,
Right. There was a study that was kind of combating that Stanford study that 300 contaminants of herbicides and pesticides have been found in newborn corn cord blood.
Oof.
And so it's like babies are being
I've seen that,
born pre-polluted because of what the mothers are ingesting. And moms, don't feel guilty about this, because this is not something that you had control over before you knew. I did not live clean and eat organic when I was pregnant with my first child, and I can't change that. I can't go back and there's no use in beating myself up over it. But the more you know, the more you know.
Yeah.
And the more you do better. We have a farm. It's a farm stand. Actually, it's there all year near our house. And I've talked to the farmer before. They don't label themselves as an organic farm stand, but he says we grow everything organic, and probably even
because you have to pay. To be considered organic, you have to pay, and you have to follow
their guidelines specifically to a T. And he's like, we really don't want to have to do that, because we want to do it to a different degree that's even better and higher. And he's like, and we really don't want government meddling in our business. Like, I love
Yeah.
this. So yeah, get to know your farmer if you can. Like, I know there was a time when I thought that like those people that went to the farmers markets, like they were crunchy, they were fringe, they were hippies. Like, I'll admit it. I used to think that about people, and now I'm that person. And I'm proud of it. And I
Judge
love,
lest you be judged.
the Lord will humble you quickly. And so if you're that person that judges those people, I get it, and I give you grace already, because that's okay. But once you actually do start eating that way, start talking to the people who you grow your food, like there's something really powerful about it.
Mhm.
And I think that's how it's meant to be. And that also encourages community and reverence for our earth. And it's just the better way.
Yeah. Amen. And so yeah, our last so we said set your intention, we said utilize resources, and then number 3 would be invite the Lord into your choices. And I think that base is just exactly what you talked about. It's kind of like allowing yourself to make these choices that actually help you connect to your creator. He is the one that created everything we eat. And he's the one that created our bodies as the temple. And so if we just kind of move through this way of health and eating and reading our ingredients in that way, then that is inviting the Lord into your choices. Yes, we can stop and pray about it. Yes, we should do that. But it's really more of like this lifestyle that is created that connects you to the creator.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just has to be one step at a time.
Mhm.
Keep it simple. If you've got one area that you'd like to try to do better on, just focus on that one area. Don't try to build Rome in a day.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. I've been on this journey since 2021, so 5 years, and I'm still learning and growing.
For me, it's been since like 2008, and there's been a lot of grace that's been inserted into it. It's not perfect. It's just, taking your scenario and your journey in life and growing as God guides you and leads you.
Amen. So we hope something stuck with you today, and just give yourself grace and enjoy your food while you're at it.
And stay wholly rooted.
Amen.